Hello friends, today we will study about Talcott Parsons. So let us start now from the background. Parsons was one of the first iconic figure in American sociology. That means he was American sociologist. He was instrumental in developing Harvard University of Sociology department into one of the top ranked in the world. His theoretical formulations were influential not only within the sociology but throughout the social sciences, often associated with conservative political ideology and free market economy. He was born in 1902, Colorado, in Protestant family in USA. Parsons initially wanted to be a biologist or a medical doctor. He graduated from the Amish College in 1924, where he majored in biology and philosophy, but decided to do graduate work in economics. For that, in 1924-25, he attended the London School of Economics, LSE. Here, he was introduced to the works of Harold Lasky, Richard Tavaney, Malinowski, and Hobhouse. At the LSE, he met a young American girl in the students' common room, and the name of the girl was Helen Bangford Walker, whom he married on April 30, 1927. He took his doctorate in sociology and economics at Heidelberg University in Germany in 1927. While at the Heidelberg, he translated Max Weber's one of the most famous work of the Max Weber, The Protestant Ethic and Spirit of Capitalism, which exercised a great influence upon young American sociologists. From 1927 to 31, Parsons worked as an instructor in the Department of Economics at Harvard University. During this period, he studied the works of Alfred Marshall, the great classical economic theorist, Emile Durkheim, and Alfred Pareto. His first monumental work, The Structure of Social Action, 1937, was influenced by the theories of Marshall, Durkheim, Pareto, and Weber. Parsons became a full professor of sociology at Harvard in 1944. He held that position until his retirement in 1973. Parsons died of a stroke on May 8, 1979, while giving series of lectures in Munich, Germany. Now let us see Parsons' sociological work. Parsons was an advocate of grand theory building, an attempt to integrate all the social sciences within the overarching theoretical framework. Now let us see his sociological career. His sociological career can be broadly divided into three phases. Phase 1, from 1929 to 1937. During this period, Parsons began his sociological work by criticizing Chicago school approach, which Parsons found totally uninspiring and was focusing too much on empirical research and neglecting theory building. In Parsons' time, American sociology conspicuously lacked theory building, and the entire focus was on the devising more efficient ways of empirical research. According to Parsons, this kind of research was unproductive. Then what he did? He took upon himself the responsibility for building a comprehensive theory for American sociology. For that, what he did is he turned to European social sciences for help. He discovered three main intellectual traditions. First one was utilitarian, that means classical economists. Second were positivist, and third were idealist. Very surprisingly, he did not include Marxism. Utilitarians treated man as a rational economic man and ignored behavioral, that means meanings and motive aspects. Thus, they oversimplified the human behavior. Positivists attempted to build general theory through empirical research, but even positivists kept themselves to outwardly observable aspects only and ignored meanings and motives of human behavior. Thus, positivists failed to take subjective dimension of the human behavior. Idealists, which included Neo-Kantians like Dilthey, Windelband, Rickert, and others, argued that reality is dual in character, social and physical, and social reality is different because of presence of this, that means spirit and consciousness, that means meanings and motives. Human beings respond meaningfully based on meanings and motives to external stimuli. Social science try to understand something that is never done in physical sciences. These meanings are changeable and not observable from outside, and hence generalization not possible. Only interpretation in the light of these meanings are possible. These are the viewpoints of idealists. So according to them, generalization is not possible. Only interpretation in the light of these meanings and motives can be done. Parsons partly accepted and partly rejected the ideas of these three major traditions. He argued that none of these three presents a comprehensive view of the social reality. He drew inferences from the critical evaluation of these three perspectives and gave his three guiding principles for sociological research. So the first guiding principle was that sociological theory must be a voluntaristic theory of social action. That means it's based on individual will. It should include conscious choice, that is, meanings and motives willfully. It was influenced by idealist tradition. Now, second guiding principle was sociological theory must be a general theory. Sociologists should look at human behavior in a patterned form. Third guiding principle was sociological theory must adopt a holistic way of looking at social reality. Idea similar to Durkheim. At different levels of interactions due to organizational complexity emerge, which have to be treated as a unified whole. So all these three guiding principles were basically combination of three major traditions of European sociology. Now let us move forward. Talcott Parsons begins with the study of micro level of social reality, that is from the level of individual action and interaction. In his first book, The Structure of Social Action, published in 1937, Parsons defined individual action by distinguishing it from behavior. Behavior is an automatic response to a stimuli, and in natural sciences like physics and biology, the behavior of objects and behavior of organisms is studied respectively. Both these natural sciences study the response of objects or organisms to stimuli. However, individual action in social science is different from such behavior in the natural science because individuals are active and creative in these actions, as they possess mind and consciousness, which is not there in organism. Individual action is not an automatic response to stimuli, but it is always taking place according to the mind and consciousness. Individuals actively create their actions according to goals and situations because of mind and consciousness. Therefore, individual action, which Parsons called the unit act, is the basic unit of sociology, from which emerge pattern of interaction, social system, and social structure. Now, let us move forward. The individual actions or the unit act consist of the following four parts. So, here unit act, that means individual actions, which Parsons called the unit act, consist of following four parts. First one is a social actor, for example a person, family, an occupational group. Second is an end, that means goal or objective, a concrete future state of affairs toward which the action is directed. Third is a situation in which the act must be initiated, in which certain social and physical conditions will apply. So situation includes conditions, that means on which no control of actor, for example road, environment. And second is means, an actor has choice of alternate means. Fourth one is a normative orientation, that means value, which regulate the relationship between these elements. This involve the investment of energy, motivation, or effort. Thus, Parsons argued that social action is the basic unit of social life. It is a meaningful response to external stimuli. It involves an agency which assigns meanings, that is an actor, which can be single individual or a collectivity, or that means a group. To be an actor means being in a situation. Being in a situation means to assign meanings to something. Whomever the actor gives meanings to constitute the situation. Every situation shall have two kinds of elements or parts. First one is conditions. It refers to those aspects of the situation which actor cannot modify, control, or change to achieve his goal. Second is means actor can use it according to his will to achieve the goal. Every situation has three types of component. Physical object, any physical entity like tools or technology actor is using. Second is social objects, other actors with whom actor is in a state of relationship. And third is cultural objects, that means values, norms, beliefs, etc. It is through culture that actors interpret the situation, find meanings and motives. It is only through the culture that the actor conveys or expresses his own meanings in response to the situation. Thus, meanings are culturally shaped. Culture offers a range of choice from which the actors make a choice in order to achieve his goal. This constitutes the social action. No action exists in isolation. So, that is social action never exists in isolation. Action is a response to earlier action and give rise to further action. Thus, there is a chain of interconnected action, that is social interactions. Now, the next phase, which begins in 1938 till early mid 1950s. By the publication of his second work, The Social System, in 1951, the Parson drifted away from the idea that social action is basic unit and became interested in macroscopic analysis. Earlier, he was concerned with the social action approach, which needed to be understood from the actor's perspective and his meanings and motives, that means microscopic analysis. But now he became interested in social action, which is pattern, because social action is culturally shaped and culture is pattern. He totally redefined the structure of social action. Parson defines social action and social system as social action means consisting of succession of individual actions towards other, and social system consisting of series of social actions towards other, resulting in pattern of interaction between many actors. So it is all about unified whole of pattern interactions. Parson argued that social reality must be viewed as a system, a methodological tool to understand reality. This concept of system has the following attributes. System is a unified whole made of interconnected parts called subsystems. Every subsystem can be viewed as a system because a social reality can be viewed as a system. Second one is the system is structured, or there exists a definite pattern of relationship between subsystems. Third is system has goals, and based upon these goals there is a boundary, and beyond boundary there is environment. The system exists in a symbiotic relationship with environment. Interdependency is there and they cannot live without each other. System has a self-equilibrating tendency, that means adapting to the situation. However, equilibrium is not a static state but a dynamic process, because system gets disturbed and tries continuously to restore the equilibrium. System has internal dynamics, which means the process of adjustment and modification takes place in system to maintain equilibrium with the surrounding or environment. Sixth one is the system has needs. To know two kinds of needs. First is needs which are universal, to all system called functional prerequisites, and the second needs which are unique to a particular system called derived need. So we will focus here functional prerequisites, because Parson was interested in grand theory building. She also focused on functional prerequisites. Later we will see. This is how he viewed social reality as a system. Parsons gave three new concepts for the analysis of social action. First one is need dispositions. Need dispositions consist of biological needs which are shaped by social forces like utilization of energy, art, etc. Second is motivation orientations. Motivational orientation are those which express the concern of individual actors about the degree of satisfaction of their need disposition. Individual interest is deemed high. So motivation orientation refers to individual interest. Third one is value orientation. Value orientations are cultural standards for the choice of various courses of action by actors. Here social aspects is deemed high. Parsons argues that orientation of social action can be divided into two components: the motivational orientation and the value orientation. Motivational orientation refers to a situation in which action takes place taking into account innate needs, external appearance and plans, individual preferences. The value orientation is based on standards of values, norms, aesthetics, morality, and thinking. Parsons found three types of motivational orientation. First one is cognitive motivational orientation. It is used by actors to analyze the social phenomena in terms of their properties, seeing object, environment in terms of their needs. Second one is cathartic motivational orientation, used by actors to attach emotions to social phenomena, emotional attitude of actors. Evaluative motivational orientation, used by the actor to determine the degree to which social phenomena satisfy their need disposition. That means optimum efficiency. For example, a cognitive orientation allows us to have a range of vegetables as our choice for meals, whereas the cathartic orientation attaches us emotionally with few of the vegetable list which one likes and most and like the most, and the evaluative part focuses on the parameter that which among the favorite vegetables can be easily available considering the limitations of time, availability and price. So it is optimum aspects. Evaluative motivational orientation is all about optimization of the choice. Similarly, Parsons found three types of value orientations. Cognitive value orientations. These are cultural standards used by actors to decide which social phenomena are useful and important. So it is all about enlisting the choices available for actions based on social standards. Second one is appreciative value orientation, are used by actors to decide the amount of emotions to be attached to the social phenomena, evaluative in terms of aesthetic senses. Moral value orientation are used to decide the degree to which social phenomena are likely to satisfy or deprive them of need disposition, evaluation in terms of rightness or wrongness. So moral value orientation. Parsons gave three types of social actions based on 3 types of motivational orientation and 3 types of value orientation as follows. First one is instrumental social action, in which cognitive motivational orientation and cognitive value orientation dominate. Second is expressive social action, in which cathartic motivational orientation and appreciative value orientation dominate. And third one is moral social action, in which evaluative motivational orientation and moral value orientations are dominant. Thus, the motivational orientation involves only the motives or psychological aspects of the individual, while the value orientation involves the cultural system. Both the psychological and cultural aspects of individual behavior are, however, interlinked and interdependent. We cannot separate them. The motivational orientation and value orientation are two levels of orientation of an actor that define the behavioral and cultural aspects of role and role expectations. In a social system, roles are institutionalized. Institutionalization means that expectations from a specific role, its value, and motivational orientations are integrated within the culture of society. Society sets common standards for role expectation from its members. Society imposes sanctions in the form of reward and punishment according to the role performed. This is how action is shaped and patterned by culture. From the analysis of social action in his first book, The Structure of Social Action, 1937, Parson moved to the analysis of social system and social structure in his second book. He defined the social system as the system of series of social actions toward other, which becomes pattern of interaction between many actors. The series of social action is the basic unit of social system. Thus, just as successive individual actions or unit